every real horror fan has had at least one experience of feeling out of place when compared with mainstream society, but I don't think there's ever been a really good attempt to understand why it is that people like horror. Like, most horror fans are generally normal people who have pretty good reasons for enjoying horror, but what are those reasons? The real reasons, not the ones that they tell people to make them leave them alone. That's what our podcast is about, interviewing people in the horror biz to find out what it is about horror that makes them happy. My name's Steve. I'm a bit of a psychology buff, and my co-host is my friend Chris, who's a bit of a horror buff. And so far, we've interviewed about 40 people in the biz and had a lot of fun doing it, and wanted to share with you some of the highlights. In this set of excerpts, we're going to talk to producer, writer, and director Adrian Garcia Bogliano, cinematographer and writer Karim Hussain, and author and editor Garrett Cook. Just going to share some of the fun stuff here, but if you want to hear the real meat of the interviews, you can check us out on Google, Apple, Spotify, or just the player on our website.
My first pretty scary thing was, going to the beach when I was 6 years old. And but that's kind of, and it happened through most of my life. I think that it's closely related also to the fact that I saw Jaws the day before I went to the beach for the first time. So
good timing.
Yeah, really a weird timing to do that. My father took my mother to watch Rosemary's Baby when she was pregnant of my older brother. So we had this weird relationship with movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you both can relate on that note. That's funny.
Your father has an odd sense of humor.
Yeah. When you're a fan of horror and you watch Jason Voorhees kill somebody, you have a lot of fun and you go like, and people don't usually understand that, and that's always been kind of a problem. People tries to correct me like, no, you're not having fun with that, right? And I'm like, yeah, I am.
Like you can't seriously enjoy watching this person's throat being slit open and blood splattering everywhere. Yeah, yes, that's the point.
I was ready to move into the teenage years, but you just said a phrase that I have to ask about. Feel good horror?
Yeah.
What is feel good horror?
There is feel good horror, of course.
What is feel good horror? Explain that.
It's horror that gives you the feels. It's you may have one moment where someone's getting split in half by a bandsaw, but at the same time, maybe it's a coming of age story where some kid falls in love with a love interest, and it's
absolutely,
it's feel good.
Absolutely, and also
when you cuddle Freddy afterwards.
And these are the films where after you watch them, you feel good that you are alive.
It wasn't me.
And it left you with a sense of that was a fun thing. That was like just going into a ride on the on a roller coaster. Yeah, I feel that way. I mean, because it's the same. I mean, with the roller coaster, there are these moments where you think, I'm gonna fall off this thing and I'm gonna die miserably, and by the end of it, you're just exhilarating, and you had a you were scared maybe for a moment there, but you had a lot of fun in the whole thing was fun. I did when I was a teenager, I did bungee jumping, and it was kind of the same thing. It's like this moment where you're just falling and you're saying, okay, that's the end. And then you're
I survived.
You're not falling.
Yeah, of course. I as much as I love horror, I can count the amount of times that I got really scared with a movie through my entire life, and Blair Witch was one of those. And it's one of those things that only horror fans can understand, because I was, by the end of the film, I was absolutely scared. I was trembling, and I went with a friend, and we got out of the theater in shock. We were trembling still, and like we looked at each other and we said, let's get another ticket and let's go back again.
Yeah, it's just like the roller coaster.
Of course.
You're scared about it at first, and then afterwards, I want to go again.
Yeah, exactly. I've tried to do that kind of thing, a couple of times, and it gained me the reputation of being a director that doesn't know how to shoot a movie. Like, with Here Comes the Devil, it happened to me a lot. Like people, film critics sending me to film school. And I was like, I know that this is not the normal way to do the scene. I know that. It's not that I'm unaware of it. It's just I'm trying to do something.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. I'm trying to to keep you out of balance a little bit. So
you didn't break the 180 rule, did you?
I did, actually. I did a couple of times, but on purpose. Yeah.
If it's on purpose, it's okay.
That's something that I always felt it was amazing, and actually when I saw the film, Gaspar Noé was there, and he managed to get the sound and in the theater at a really, really loud level. He tested it, and I would have
slipped the guy a 5.
Yeah, and I also had just to make it like a more immersive experience. For some reason, I had Gaspar's father sitting behind me, and every time that something happened in the screen, he would kick my my seat. It's like kicking my seat every time.
So interactive seating.
It was really immersive, really immersive. It was like a 4D kind of experience.
Yeah.
Nice.
And, just those VHS lessons, because you could pause it and you could step forward and see actually how the editing was done, which is something I would do. I would re-edit the movies in certain ways just to try different things with 2 VCRs. I would re-edit them, make, just to see if you did this instead of that, what would happen.
That is interesting. I've heard of some indie electronic IDM artists, Venetian Snares, for example. He one of the first things he did was to make mashups of things by taking 2 cassette decks and recording them both into a third cassette deck. So you kind of did the video version.
Yeah, with terrible VCRs that didn't even have what they called a flying erase head back then. So there was a rainbow sort of on the VHS on every cut, brief sort of digital analog noise rainbow. It was all analog.
Well, that just gives it that much more
flavor.
Yeah, no, definitely. Today, there would be an app for it, but back then it was considered to be then it was considered to be a fault. Today it is a hipster app. So
yes, VHS filter.
Yeah. Setting aside the cinematographical aspects of it for a moment, and
is that a word?
I made it up. Shut up.
Yeah, I mean, I would watch things like Cannibal Holocaust when I was 12. I wasn't 6, watching those movies. In fact, when I was 6, the movie I don't think had come out. But I was like a preteen or an early teen when I was getting into the really extreme level horror movie.
That was my other question I was going to ask, because you mentioned Texas Chainsaw and Cannibal Holocaust, and I was going to say, how old were you when you saw those?
Yeah, it was probably around that time. Probably
12, 14?
Before 14, but probably around 12ish.
I'm gonna use that as an excuse for when I can show my nephew Texas Chainsaw and Holocaust. 12 to 14.
Go for it.
Halloween as a child.
Yeah, great, love it. Halloween was actually the Carpenter film and also the Holiday. Both were huge deals.
Yeah, we're talking about Holiday.
The Holiday was massive. Still is my favorite holiday, even though I get to celebrate it less and less because frequently I'm shooting a movie or something during it, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to.
Favorite costume?
Costume. I mean, I loved gore effects and zombies. I was a huge Dawn of the Dead kid. I saw that again. I saw that young, and obviously Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, then later Day of the Dead were absolute life-changing things.
Did you have a least favorite costume?
Any costume was a good costume, I would say. I don't have any memories of a Halloween costume. It was like, this was a terrible idea. Any of them were good.
Okay. Was it the process of dressing up or putting on makeup that you liked, or was it just
going out and scaring people? Going out and scaring people. It was a way to sort of test the boundaries that affected me so much in these genre pictures. Not in a malicious way whatsoever, but in a sort of like almost trying to share the fun, even though not everybody thought it was fun. As you can
if only they understood, they would share.
The whole boo, my face is falling off. Fun, is something that not everybody understands, but those who understand, and there you go.
It's not worth pointing a camera at if it doesn't have red stuff.
I mean, I've done, some pretty almost disturbing movies that have very little blood in them. But, even to this day, the minute there's blood on set, everybody just gets a little peppier and more excited. even on the, just relatively larger scale movies, the minute there's a gore effect or something, it still
lightens the mood.
Puts a little spring in people's steps, even though those steps usually end up sticking to the ground with syrup. I mean, either Cara syrup or I gotta strongly recommend the new sorbitol blend of blood that some new people are doing. It definitely is way better than the Cara syrup, but not everybody has gone the way of sorbitol, but it's highly recommended.
Product placement.
Sorbitol, thanks you.
Yes. The Grendel Warchild series has both graphic sex, I think, in it, if I remember correctly, and violence. So
sure. Game of Thrones helped sort of toughen up mainstream genre pictures tremendously, because it was such a successful show and really went places and was really, really, really extreme. Certainly Game of Thrones.
To the point where they were like, hey, you want to smash a guy's head like a watermelon? You know what? The show's popular enough.
You can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly Possessor was greatly helped to be able to make that movie as extreme as it was. We were helped by, things like Game of Thrones, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, without things like that in the past, like, say, 10 years or so, I'd say it probably would have gotten an NC-17.
Possessor did get an NC-17, actually. and had to be...
Open mouth, insert foot.
So, having seen Hellraiser at 8 and Rosemary's Baby at 11, I'm curious, were your parents not paying attention to what you were watching? Did they...
Well, we had a bootleg video store inside our stairs.
Inside your stairs?
Yes. My grandfather had this friend who he would trade rare stamps for boxes of decontextualized dubbed videotapes, and he would hide the decontextualized dubbed videotapes inside our stairs. Like, our stairs were a video shelf in the basement, essentially.
That's kind of awesome. Like, did you know?
It was awesome. I saw a lot of shit I didn't quite understand. Yeah. I saw Weekend when I was like 11, because I saw in I saw in this book on the great films that this was the most disturbing one of the most disturbing films ever made, to the critic who wrote that. In some ways that tracks, in other ways, like, Weekend is kind of a bitter pill. But yeah, I watched Weekend because I thought, like, oh boy, I'm in for some scary shit. And ideologically, I was in for some scary shit, but the actual stuff on the screen was a lot less interesting.
And how old were you when you saw that?
That was about 10.
Okay, so you were reading reviews talking about scary shit at 10 and seeking it out.
Oh yes.
How? Why?
Because we had a book on the great films, and I read that through, and I was very fascinated with canons as a kid. I wanted to contextualize and understand and categorize ideas and explore canons, and gather as much as I could about human culture, and gather as much as I could about the arts and how to do it right. I have to know what I have to find things that excite me and engage me intellectually, because I'm not being engaged intellectually by my peers, and I was alone a lot. Like, I had friends, but my friends were not into that kind of stuff.
So I haven't seen this one. Are they actually talking in English or whatever, Japanese, whatever language?
The little twins are translating the monster talk as they talk. There is a moment where Godzilla talks in Japanese to another monster and sends it out to investigate a thing in a later one, which I always find hilarious. But it's not quite that silly back at Ghidorah, three-headed monster. It took him about 7 more years to get completely off the rails goofy enough that a giant monster would be sent to investigate something, because that's not in their skill set. Just having spite is what this guy usually does. They're not very subtle.
Like a classic Dick Tracy overcoat and the hat.
Peeking around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly, they did not get him a trench coat and hat and glasses and dark glasses. That would have been much better.
Yeah.
The tiptoeing would be the best part, because tiptoeing would still cause minor earthquakes. Just boom.
Yeah. Still crushing buildings, just small ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was kind of funny. My mother, because she was stationed in Arizona in the Marines, and there was a photo of her with Billy D. Williams because they were filming Return of the Jedi at the time.
Nice.
And so I saw this photo, and as a small child, for 3 days, I thought my dad was Billy D. Williams.
Your dad is Lando Calrissian.
And I thought I thought my mother was just ashamed that he betrayed his best friend to the Empire. So for 3 days, I thought my dad was Billy D. Williams.
Seems like something a child would think, yeah.
No, exactly. And then my mother was
that's why she left him.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I know you're a child. Damn, that's really dumb.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. No, that's just... We had radical and honest communication, to say the least, in my household.
She was a Marine.
Yeah, she was. No, exactly. I do resent that they ruined a perfectly good bear with their garbage. I think you should not stuff your garbage into a perfectly good bear, and that's my one moral objection I have to people in Midsummer.
I was wondering where you're going.
I think that's going to be the audio clip for this interview.
Yes. Who put all this garbage in this bear?
God damn it. Yeah. It was such a great
nothing else
bear.
away from this movie.
Yeah. Just let the bear be.
Yeah.
Right? What did the bear do to you? So yeah, come check us out over at horrormakeshappy.com, or check out some of our other excerpts until you find someone whose interview you do want to hear.